Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they move through their pain, they realize that something worthwhile, something for the greater good could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast, and the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them, and that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesandgrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesandgrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode. The wonders of technology. But I apologize too for missing you last week. You know, that was totally my fault though. Not a technology problem. It was totally mine because I was putting in Kimberly Koland, K-O-K, instead of Koland.
Yeah. And that's okay.
No, it isn't.
It is, because you know what? We need to learn to give ourselves a lot more grace. And it's a first world problem. It is not a life crisis.
Yeah, you know what I've realized since losing my son was I just don't care about that stuff at all. I don't care if I'm feeble-minded or whatever. It happens, and that's just whatever. I just the little things don't matter anymore. So
no, they really don't. And it's not to be rude to people. It's not to undermine the value of specific situations, but it's okay to not care too much about things that really don't matter.
Yeah, now this happens all the time in my podcast where the same theme comes up again and again. And the last one that I just did, or just released it, he was talking about the same thing where, and we both we're talking about how those peripheral things just don't seem to matter when you start focusing on the real things that we should be paying attention to.
But then just to pretend non-degreed psychologist here. But then I realize I start to focus, sir, on things that here's an example. I love to clean. I love it when things are clean. Everything has its spot. Nothing's out of order. It brings me so much joy to do that. I cannot not clean. So it's weird how there's some things that you use in life, not just because of grief, but in life as a coping mechanism to try to make it something that you feel a sense of control over. When it's maybe something I can control, but yet there's an element of false sense of control.
Makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So If you don't mind telling your story, because again, this is very timely. I just had a woman contact me a couple of days ago, and she was seeking some resources because a friend of hers, her male partner, committed suicide. And she also had a brother that committed suicide. And she's very worried about her. And so she was seeking out some resources. And
She's worried about her own personal mental health at this point with all the tragedy.
yeah, she's worried about the
Yeah,
other one.
that makes
And
sense.
so I did see some of your background. So it's very timely. And if you don't mind sharing, and then some of the wonderful things, of course, some of the wonderful things that you're doing as well, coming out of that. So let's hear
Yeah,
your story.
well, hi, my name's Kimberly, and I live in Minneapolis. And my journey into this conversation, Tom, and why we are connected to one another has to do with my husband who died by suicide in October of 2021, 4 months after we married.
Mm,
Well, to be precise, 4 months and 10 days. And I do count those 10 days because you kind of try to hold on to any amount of time that you can possibly hold on to. And when we were dating, um, he would talk about his friend's mental health journey. He would talk about his brother's mental health journey. And like, I was thinking about that the other day. Like, you always talked about your brother, like how your brother had depression and how your brother went on medicine and blah, blah, blah. But he never spoke up about his own. And I guess I failed in asking something I would never do again. Um, I failed in asking, well, tell me about your mental health, which is, I
mm,
think, now to me, a very appropriate question to ask people that this is not a dating show and I'm not in the mood to date anybody. So don't come after me, people. But now I would say to people, make sure that you ask them in a gentle way. There's ways that you can talk to people about their mental health. I would recommend doing that,
yeah.
but he didn't. And in fact, he was mentally unwell 10 years before I met him. And he had tried to die by suicide, or at least had several incidences of suicide ideation at that point, even in front of his own family. But they never talked about it. And so when we were married, um, um, it took 16 days. And 16 days after we married, he received an email that just tripped him up at work. He was a principal. Now, Tom, you would not have thought that someone who looked like him would have a would struggle with mental health. He dressed up for work every day. He had a suit and tie on. He had a tie for every day of the year. He had more shoes than I had. The closet that we shared um, only had room for his clothes, basically. And
Mm,
it was a little funny and annoying, but funny. So he looked like somebody who would have it all together. He was a principal and a teacher, um, involved in special ed for the district at one point as well. He was a coach as well. You would not have picked him out of the lineup. And that's what's important about mental health, is that there is not a specific look. And once we can wrap our head around that, we can get to the point where we can um, be a little bit more free with others and give grace to others, because you don't have any expectations of what somebody should look um, like that. And so then that email tripped him up. It tripped him up, Tom, and he would meditate on it and he would hyper fixate on it, and it was not a life crisis in autism. Because I was my last teaching position that I took, um, well, second last teaching position I took, I guess, was in relation to autistic children and working with autistic children. And in autism, we talk about, is this a glitch or is this a problem? And then we put it on a problem scale. it was a glitch. It was an email, and the email was about work, and the email was related to a choice that he made for personnel at his job as a principal in hiring a highly qualified gentleman who at that time was the PE teacher, but he hired his PE teacher to be the academic coach for the school, and that meant that that person would oversee other teachers being involved in what we call in Minnesota QComp, which is almost it's like a bonus pay, but it's tied into meeting measures that we have set. And and so the person that he hired, his staff was like, "Oh, you cannot hire a PE teacher. Like, how can you? What does a PE teacher know about reading?" Okay, well, and it really made him frustrated, and he he couldn't undo that. So six weeks after we married, so that'd be 3 weeks later, maybe 3 weeks later, maybe 4 weeks later, he told me in the evening of July 21st, that he was suicidal. And then that night, in the middle of the night, we ended up at a hospital, and that's when everything flipped um, upside down for me, because I was going from being somebody's girlfriend to being somebody's fiance, then somebody's bride one day to somebody's caretaker, and then somebody's widow. And it happened so fast that my mind could not keep up with what was happening, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I couldn't figure it out, because I'm very, I don't know if it's a thing to be boastful about, but I'm very good at caretaking. I enjoy nursing. I'm not a nurse. I just had my CNA license, to do um, basic medical cares, right, is what a CNA license can provide. And I did basic medical cares for people in the past. I did basic medical cares for my mom when she was ill, and before she went to heaven. And so that doesn't bother me. It was just way, way over consuming, and something that I didn't expect. But you never know, I guess, what to expect sometimes when you marry somebody. We all understand that, you know. But this was really coming to me out of left field. But for him and for his family, who did not want to talk about the stigma, it was just bringing them back to yesterday. And for them, yesterday was 10 years ago. Oh, so we're back here again. What do you mean we're back here again? How did we even get here? So,
yeah, and you're going
that's
through
kind
the major life events. You look on that scale, right?
yeah.
Marriage, and then caretaking for someone is a major life event. So, I mean, in a very short period of time, and you're trying to process all of that. Do you think he was projecting his own issues onto those other people when he said that, we talk about other people's mental health issues, but not his own?
Yeah. I think that I've tried, how, I'm not sure if you do this, but I know that other people do this. You know how you're in a situation, and then you're removed from it for a while. Maybe you're lying in bed or sitting on the sofa, or you're going for a walk, and you replay it back in your head to see how you can make sense of something. Or sometimes we replay it so that we can rewrite the story. Sometimes we replay it because we want to remember how it was. There's a variety of reasons why somebody might replay something over and over in their head. I replay it because I should have said at that time, well, tell me about your mental health. How's your mental health? I replay it because I'm looking for clues. And yeah, there were clues. While we were dating, we didn't live together until we got married. And it was at the end of the school year. So it was kind of funny. It was a good plan. It was not a bad plan. It was a good plan. And anyhow, while we were dating, from time to time, I would, you call somebody in the morning, you go, hi, hey, Tom, how you doing? How'd you sleep last night? Oh, well, I didn't sleep that great. My response was, oh my goodness, did you have caffeine too late? My response was, I've heard something about people eating chocolate. Chocolate has enough caffeine to keep you awake a little longer. Make sure you stay away from chocolate. Did you take your melatonin? Oh my goodness, have you tried magnesium? Magnesium's probably what you need. Now, I just heard some research about cloves. If you steep cloves in hot water for about 10 minutes and then drink the, right? That's what I thought because I did not know what I had to work with. And so I did see clues. I just did not know what they were until we married. And then I understood, oh my Lanta, when he says he cannot sleep, 2 hours of sleep to go to work the next day and be a boss and oversee a learning institution is not enough sleep. And it just, it just wasn't working. My dad said something to me really fascinating. Um, Not that he has like cognitive knowledge, he just has intuitional knowledge on this. Dad said, my intuition tells me, Kimberly, that he was probably thinking that he was going to die by suicide before he met you. But because he met you and all the endorphins and serotonin and all those good things that come when you're dating somebody or in a relationship helped him get through whatever he was getting through. And so my dad just believes in his heart that dating me gave him an extra year of his life, but it wasn't sustainable because during that time frame he had taken himself off of medicine because, well, endorphins and serotonin and all those good things, but you need to be on medicine. You need, if you should be on medicine, whatever it's for, take your medicine.
Yeah, there are imbalances in physiological things that medicine can help with, in depression and those type of things for sure. Do you, and I want to be very careful how I ask you this. When you're talking about him saying that he wasn't sleeping, and then because as a guy, we're fixers. So when I heard you saying what you were saying, you were providing the fixing. Like that's the way I would respond a lot of times in my relationship. And sometimes that's not what that person needed at that time, to hear, well, oh, you could do this or you could do that. Do you think he took that as an affront in some way, or internalized that as, oh, just another thing I'm doing wrong or something like that?
It could have been. It's hard to tell exactly in retrospect what some of his mindset was on some of these things, and um, I hope that he would have given to me enough grace because I did not know what he knew.
Yeah.
I was only providing short-term answers to a lifelong problem.
Yeah, like you would in
Because
discussion, right? Just to say,
yeah,
what about these things, and
yeah.
yeah.
Now, I mean, I have a whole list of things that you can do to help yourself sleep better, right? Oh, so it was something, but that was a really good point of view, Tom, because he was a fixer. He liked to fix things. He liked to um, build things. He liked to plan things. So
I do want to say too, I'm learning along the path here that I said committed in the beginning, and I don't like that term anymore either. I took Grief Educator with David Kessler, and
oh, okay.
they're very good about changing that terminology because of the negative
Yeah,
connotation. So I
yeah.
apologize for that. I'm
Oh,
learning myself.
you know
It's
what?
died by suicide and not committed because it's the
Yeah,
bad connotations with that.
yeah, there's, well, thank you, but there's other ways to say it as well. I've heard people say unalived themselves.
Mm,
I guess one of the ways that I like to phrase it is he died because he had poor mental health,
yeah.
and that will always be true. That will never be untrue. Some I like to think that everybody at this point is struggling with their mental health. They're somewhere on the virtual mental health spectrum. You you are never always going to be great with your mental health every day of your life. There'll always be something that you have to deal with, and it kind of ebbs and flows. But that's why you have a skill set, right? That's why you have a toolbox, and that's why you just know what you need to know about yourself, and try to help yourself with the tools that you might have: your medication, your therapist, your faith walk, your friendship circle of a few people that you can talk to honestly, journaling, fitness, diet. It all goes together. So when we can ascertain what we need for ourselves, um, you and I, who are average, above average on our mental health, doing pretty good, above average. Some days are pretty dark, and not pretty dark, but some days are pretty bad. But I'll spin it around. Give me a minute. There's people who can't do that,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have the toolbox to be able to, and they also struggle with um, self-worth, because that's what mental health can make you do. I'm never going to be free of this. I'm never going to be able to. This is a never situation. And when you start nevering yourself, you put yourself in a stuck corner.
Yeah, I always thought that was a huge one. The self-esteem. You can almost trace back, um, a large percentage of the issues with people to their self-esteem in some way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a good point. When so you go through this, um, did you want to cover anything else about the events that took place, um, or proceed on to what occurred with you afterwards?
Well, when he died, it was when he died, the journey leading up to that had involved a variety of different mental health institutions. And mental health care is a really difficult journey for families, for patients, and for healthcare workers. Um, he died in a hospital under mental health care. That was traumatic. You send somebody to a hospital to get well, and they come back dead.
Hmm.
That was difficult, yet I do not hold or begrudge the staff, because by that time my husband was able to, what's the word I want, to talk his way out of it. He was able to pretend and put on a mask and say that he was fine
Mm-hmm.
when he wasn't. And so they were only operating based on what he said. Now, since then, Minnesota, where I live, has some laws that are really helpful for people struggling with mental health. The one that I attach myself to tremendously, because I wish it would have been in place for my son, for my husband, and I wish it would be in place. I know it would be in place for anybody whose family member or friend was going through this here in my state, is that they are supposed to be given a liaison, some type of caseworker that follows them around wherever they go. So it doesn't matter if they're at this hospital or that. They have a caseworker who knows and can then speak to the staff about it. And that wasn't something that my husband had afforded to him. I don't even know that he knew it was a choice. I didn't know it was a choice, and I'm not sure it was a choice at that time. Pretty sure it wasn't. But that was really hard, because when somebody is pretending to be okay when they're not, he was a highly intelligent man, which is why I married him, because I like intelligent people. But he was able to talk his way out of it because of that. So it's hard to tell what would have happened in a different type of scenario or setting.
Hmm. Sounds like an addictive person. Same kind of thing. They become very good at the other life or
Yeah,
hiding the other
you
life.
you can become really good at things you shouldn't be good at.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. So that's the story. And it's a sad story only because Brian's life ended that way. But Brian's life was not all about that.
Yeah.
It's just difficult because it overshadowed so many wonderful parts of his life. But that's what stigma does. Stigma is a bully, and stigma comes in like a tornado and sets up residence in your heart and in your mind, and it plans to stay there until you have the personal with itness and capability to get rid of it, to push it out, to have whatever tools that you need to eradicate it from your life.
Mm-hmm. That is a great analogy. I love that because a tornado, you watch those tornadoes go through, it destroys everything. So that person, who that person really is, that tornado takes that person away, and that tornado is the stigma,
Mm-hmm.
that issue, and that's all people see or think about.
Right.
Yeah,
It's easier for me to be mad at the stigma than it is to be mad at my husband.
yeah. How long ago did all this occur?
Let me see. That was October. He died in October of 2021.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. But that's not the end of the story, and that's the beauty of it all. Um, Death is not the end. It feels like it is. It feels like it will always be this way, but it's not. And I believe that I walk in this space where we reside in a world where you can choose to be buried or planted because they are kind of the same thing, but one leads to hope and one leads to life. I I choose being planted. I I'm not buried. I'm planted. I didn't like what was planted. I did not like the seed that went down into the ground. I did not know how I was going to make it out, but I did. And it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of self awareness and a lot of grief work and soul work to become a little tiny seed that wants to become a shoot that pushes through the darkness and the dirt and into the light again. And even once you're in the light, that doesn't mean you're okay because you're fragile. You are susceptible to all sorts of weather phenomenons, including the wind of today and the rain that's coming in tomorrow. But if you can find your way through, if you can protect yourself in this world, even when you feel weak, if you can have some sort of tools that you can use in your life, pretty soon that little shoot in you will grow, and it will keep growing, and it will start to flourish, and it will grow fruit, and that fruit can bless others. So that's what I hope to do.
Another beautiful analogy. The the stalk gets stronger too as you go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
to withstand the weather that you're going to continue to have, it
Yeah.
doesn't stop. But
No,
you grow
it doesn't.
stronger in the midst of it.
You do, and that doesn't mean you don't bend. That just means you don't, you're not flattened. You know, the locusts did not come and eat this up. They wanted to, I'm sure. The swarm of locusts could have easily come in and attacked me and my little so-called metaphor of my little shoot of a plant that I am. But they didn't. They didn't, because there's self-care things that I put in place.
Hello, friends. I just wanted to take a brief break here in the podcast to make you aware of a very exciting partnership that Heroes in Grief has just formed, and that is with Get Griefy magazine. I'm going to let their founder and editor-in-chief, Kara Sanchez, tell you all about it.
Hey, Heroes in Grief listeners. Life after loss isn't easy, but it can be colorful and full of possibilities. Meet Get Griefy magazine, a vibrant resource filled with inspiring stories of life after loss, expert advice, and voices from everyday grievers and thought leaders. Together, they're here to help guide you toward the side of life that's left to be lived fully and authentically. Dive into Get Griefy for free on issue or snag a print copy on Amazon. Connect with us on Instagram at Get Griefy Magazine or visit getgriefymagazine.com to explore, join our thriving small business collective, or discover advertising opportunities. Let's embrace life after loss, boldly and together.
And now back to our episode. So when that shoot or that sprout happened and you're beginning to flourish, how did that manifest itself in you?
Well, there are a few things that I did that have helped me that I think are helpful for others. Some of them are really simple that anybody can do on any given day, no matter what. But they help you with your mental health, because when you go on a grief journey, you, by proxy, go on a mental health journey. It's so much fun. It's just great. Nothing's more fun than being on a grief journey / trauma journey, which is not the same thing, and a mental health journey all at the same time. It's just really precious. And I think things that people can do involve journaling. I know that a lot of men might not be people who are interested in journaling. You can call it what you want. Just open up your Google Doc and type in things that you want to type in, like the poets from yesteryears gone by, where they just sat there with their paper and their quill and wrote down all sorts of random thoughts. Go ahead and do that, because you're getting it out of your brain. I like to write a lot. It helps me to write things out into word form, not just words that don't make sense. Put them into some type of word form. Helps me to create meaning. And I went to GriefShare, which is a 13-week, it's kind of like a therapy. I call it therapy, grief therapy. And it's 13 weeks of meeting with a group of people that you probably don't know, who are also experiencing grief. You watch a video for a half an hour, and then you break off into 2 subgroups. One is for loss of spouse and one is for loss of others. And you talk about the video, and there's specific questions that go that we talk about, but it's very fluid, and it just normalizes the experience, because sometimes when you are in your grief silo, you think that it's just you, and then you get to GriefShare or whatever grief therapy program you might use, and you realize, I am not alone, and all this is normal. Perfect. Okay. And it just helps you to sit in an awkward and uncomfortable space, but know that you're not alone, and that's good. Also, just keeping up with your physical fitness. Not necessarily, I'm not a marathon runner. I'm not running anymore because of plantar fasciitis. But but keeping up with your physical fitness and whatever that means for you, and making sure that you're eating good and healthy food that can nourish your body, and drinking, it sounds dumb, but drinking water, a lot of water, because grief is dehydrating. You cry a lot, and your tears come from the water that you have, and so you can easily get dehydrated if you're not careful. So many things, right? So I did a lot of those things to help myself. I also quit teaching, that was helpful to me. Last year was my last year of teaching. This is the first year out since 1994. And that was helpful for my own mental health, because I think because of my husband and him having a very similar job, teaching is very stressful. I know many teachers whose mental health is on the low end, especially right now because it's May and June. So I had to remove myself from that by choice and just say, well, I have other things that I'm more passionate about than this right now. But I want to be thankful for the 31 years that I had and the families that I served and the students that I met and the lessons that I learned. But now I need something new. And so that's, in a way, it's kind of like moving on for people. But I don't use the word moving on. I think it's just moving forward.
Mm-hmm. I like the things that you talked about. They're all engagement to bring your senses in. Journaling, you're writing, you're thinking, you're observing, you're reading, watching a video, engaging with other people, physical activity. All of those things are great things to bring you back to the foundation of reality out of the grief experience or during the grief experience.
Right. They talk a lot about that in mental health practices. I'm not a licensed mental health practitioner, and I'm never going to be, because I'm never going back to college. Thank you.
Me neither.
6 years was 6 years, and that's enough. And I don't plan to continue on forward to get my PhD in anything. I'm fine with my master's. But I have learned that, one way to ground yourself is to start speaking out loud about your senses, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you taste, because grounding is important.
Yeah. The journaling thing comes up again and again. I don't journal. I just wrote a chapter. I was asked to be part of an anthology, which was fantastic. First time I've ever sat down to really write, in that capacity in any way. But the journaling comes up again and again for people. And you talked about men possibly not, desiring to do that or whatever. Again, I just had a gentleman on who did that. And sometimes it's just screaming on paper, whatever it might be. Like you said, whatever your thoughts are, and it could be vulgar. It can be the feelings you have, and just get them out, because then you can, there is validity in this releasing of it. It's almost like when you sit down to meditate, bring a pad and something comes to mind, write it down, get rid of it and let it go. Same philosophy. Just let it out and get it out. And that engagement again brings, a little bit of, a little bit back down to earth, where you're just, your world's so destroyed. And you're just swimming around in never land. And it brings you some stability, to the moment. And sometimes it's moment, or in the beginning, it is moment by moment.
Mm-hmm. And also, Tom, if you keep your writing, you can look back and you can see your own growth.
Yeah.
Because often people don't know that they are growing, but they are. And so when you can write down your own thoughts, your words in whatever way, shape, or form, poetry, maybe it's musical scores, right? My cousin loves to write music. It helps her process things, right? So she sits down and she writes musical scores because she loves it. Now, don't ask me. I'm not going to write musical scores.
Yeah.
My auntie writes poetry. All these little things that are beautiful we can do and keep. And then in time, you're going to be able to go back and go, oh my goodness, look where I was. Oh my, look, and be proud of yourself, and not in a conceited way, not in a boastful way, but it is very good to be proud of yourself for how far you've come, because no one else can do the work for you.
Yeah.
You, Tom, had to do the work for Tom, even though you have a spouse, even though you have people that love you and encourage you, they still can't do the hard work for you. You have to choose that. It's a daily wake up and choose this, kind of like forgiveness. Every day you have to wake up and choose to walk in forgiveness. Every day you have to wake up and choose to walk in hope. You wake up and choose these things. You wake up and choose to love your wife again, or your spouse again, or your children again, even though you were mad at them last night because whatever. It's a daily choice. But so is this process. You don't need to wake up and choose to dwell in grief every day. That's only going to spiral you down to an abyss where nobody can actually sustainably stay.
Yeah. I would encourage people, even if you're not a writer, a typer, whatever, so many things you can dictate into now, and it gets the text down there. So you could have those things to look back on even in that way. There's so many ways of doing it now. There's really no excuse.
No, there isn't. And painting, there's always a way to let your personal kite fly again, whatever that might be.
Yeah. What kind of things do you provide now? Are you in grief work, grief services now?
Yes.
Is that what you do?
Yes, I am, and I do it for free because that's just how GriefShare functions. And I am a GriefShare leader, and we're on break for the summer. But next summer, I think we're going to start with summer GriefShare classes. We talked today about starting a GriefShare connection group for children, and working on trying to figure out what that might look like, because I'm the only, that's a lie, I'm not the only teacher. She's a teacher too. There's two of us teachers who are quite interested, in GriefShare, but we also have been classroom elementary teachers, and we know the impact of grief upon children, and we don't want to leave them out of the equation. And just trying to figure out what that looks like. But I love being involved in GriefShare, and then I also sit on the board for the mental health wellness campaign in my county that I live in, and we do things within my county. I also volunteer for two other mental health organizations that do good work in the Twin Cities and provide resources for schools. As long as I'm involved with something that allows for schools and children to be involved with, it'll continue to feed my soul, because school matters to me, education matters to me, and mattered to Brian, and that's just been my life work. And I just cannot fathom losing a parent at such a young age, like I've seen students do, or siblings at such a young age, and not being able to process it. So as long as our mental health and wellness campaigns that we have also have a tie into education in the schools, I'm happy.
Beautiful. Is GriefShare just an in-person thing, or is it done online too? Or
There are online. If you were to go to griefshare.org, you can put in your zip code, and it'll populate GriefShare communities all around the United States. I'm not quite sure how many countries it's in. And it comes in like 12 different languages as well. The videos do. Now, my guess is that it's voiced over, not people, and that's fine. But that's really good for people. So yeah, it's been a joy to be in this community of grief and mental health. It's changed everything. I'm confident in saying that that's probably true for you yourself and your family, experiencing the death of your son, right? Your son.
Yes.
Yeah. So things change, and you're on a new trajectory that you did not anticipate for yourself, but here you are, and you're just trying to plant more seeds and draw in a bigger harvest.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You're so right. Never expected, never thought, but know that I have to follow. And You mentioned too about with the kids, and I have a real heart for normalizing the grief conversation, and that we should be
Mm-hmm.
better equipped for grief, and maybe bringing that into wellness and educational programs to make it something that people are more familiar with when they do encounter it, because unless we leave first, we're all going to encounter it. So it seems that it should be more of a thing that people are better. It never takes away the pain. It'll never take away the pain. That's not the idea. The idea is that, say you know someone who experiences a grief event, and then you're better equipped to be with that person, and that if they're more knowledgeable about it. And I think that I don't know if that'll ever break through. I hope it does, but it seems to me that those kind of things can happen where it could be brought to children at an early age, and more, I guess normalized is the word. That's all you can use. But
Yeah, and it's just a beautiful space when grief is included in school or in places of worship, um, and or in communities. Just having it looks different, right? It looks like for kids, it looks like, oh, we're going to the playground, but all the friends there that you're playing with are people who have lost people, and then you can just have a snack and you can say, um, does anybody want to share anything today about their sister that's in heaven, or about their dad, or just bring things that remind you of it. And it can be really simple. It can be as simple as art, involving artistic, drawing time, and with like a word. I say, and what do you think of? Let's draw it out. What you think of, and reading books together. There's songs that are healing songs for children. There's so much that can be done, and I think that is a space that's not just for therapists, but it's a space that parents can find resources for themselves, and schools and teachers can point to families. Hey, try this place over there. Try that. One thing is it's not one size fits all. You just kind of find your own tribe.
yeah, we've been so fortunate here in Western New York. A facility just opened up. It's called WNY, Western New York Compassion Connection. And it is a beautiful building, and it has, it's an offshoot of what's called the Punt Foundation, and that's for pediatric cancer loss and their families. And it's actually, the Punt Foundation is actually run by, or headed up by, Dawson Knox. He's one of the Buffalo Bills. And so the director of that foundation and some of her colleagues had a real heart to have a free bereavement center in Western New York here. So they finally did manage to secure a grant, and they have a beautiful facility here, and it has a child's room where there's child toy things in there, and an outside area for children. There's a teen room with teen things in there, games and things. And so they can handle a whole family as far as care there. And so it's just started maybe a month and a half ago, and already they are training volunteers on a regular basis, and they're forming outreach things and everything else. So we're very fortunate to have that now here in Western New York as well.
That reminds me of my first grade teacher lives in New York. I can't remember exactly where. I think the town starts with a C, and she's involved in grief work with children up there. When I'll look up and send it.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
She does puppets with them.
Yeah, I'm a resource person. That's it. That's I say how freeing that is all the time, because I don't really have to do the work. I don't feel I've been called to the one-on-one thing so much. Sometimes I talk to people and just that's it, works that way. But otherwise, no, it's been amazing to get connected in this whole community, because there's so much available out there. And so are you part of, where did we connect from? Was it, I couldn't remember where We got connected. Yeah. So, I mean, I network all over in this, LinkedIn or, Instagram, all these
Might
things.
be Instagram.
Yeah, possibly. Um, so yeah, it's amazing how much is really out there. And again, you talk about trying to get the word out, and that's what we're all trying to do, is break that stigma ceiling and get this all through, because people need it. And there's never enough. There's never too many resources out there. That's for sure in this area.
Right. And one of the things that I found that has been, um, when my mom passed away in December, and going through that journey with her health journey since June, passing away in December, um, then I had, the winter months of January, February, March. I I did a lot of work on myself. My dad and I went to GriefShare as participants, and then Lent came, and I practiced Lent. I really love, love, love Lent. It's so healthy for a person to, for 40 days, decide to not do something, and also for those same 40 days, decide to do something. It's good. And during that time of Lent, I was trying to think about myself, where I am, and where I want to be. And the resting place that I came to was just how we're all on this journey of finding Eden in our lives. Not It doesn't mean you're going to become a farmer. Okay, that just means that you are looking for your version of Eden that includes joy and peace, harmony, reconciliation with the past, um, and giving yourself permission to hold all that, as well as knowing full well you carry trauma, sorrow, pain, grief, and horrible life experiences. And somehow, on one hand, we have all those bad situations, those things that make our face scowl or make our tears fall. But in the other hand, which we also have, we hold beauty, we hold hope, we hold all these other things that are at the same time. One is not isolated from the other. And it reminded me of um, those old farming skills, not the one, not, like when I close my eyes, the one that I see is elongated, and you hook on the one side whatever you're weighing, hook it there. And then you have on the other side all these things that you balance the scale out. You put it on here. Okay, okay. So here's all the pain that I have hooked on there. But then I have these weights, and I need to hook on how much joy do I need? How much love do I need? How much self-compassion do I need? How much hope do I need today to balance out that weight and to level out that scale? And that's how I think about, when I think about Eden, is recreating that space in life for myself and with others that extends the self-compassion, the grace that we need, that acknowledges that we've all been in difficult spaces and difficult journeys and had to plow difficult fields. But we also have Eden, and Eden is the place within our souls. It's not a I mean, you could find Eden on the map now, kind of, if you try really hard. No one's really found it, but we know it's located by two main rivers, right? The Euphrates and the Tigris, however you pronounce that river, and two other rivers that are over there. That's not what I necessarily mean. It's that space of your soul that you can go to on the bad days and go, yep, this really bites the bullet. Don't like this, hate it all. Hate it so much, I'm going to go garden, and I'll see you later. I'm just going to go out and talk to my plants for a while. I'm just going to go out for a walk. And so you start to fill up all your joy that's been depleted because of whatever. And you're like, nope, I'm lacking joy today. I'm going to be back in a little while. Do your thing. And I like that. It's been very helpful. And it's not a space where you're like being like toxic positivity. because that's different. Toxic positivity is like, oh, you know what, Tom, I know, I'm so sorry about the loss of your child. That must be really bad, but good thing that you're going to get over it, or at least you still have your wife, or
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
your house didn't. That's toxic positivity. What I'm talking about is hope, and how hope is just a flicker. But if all you have is a flicker, you can still step forward.
You have a beautiful way of bringing illustrations to what your point is, and I think it's going to help so many out there, and is already. And even the things that you've said in this short, almost hour that we've had here, for me personally, there's some that I'm going to use and that are going to stick with me. You have a gift with that. It's obvious. So
Well,
keep up that great work.
well, thank you. I think that words can be. Each of us have had words spoken to us, um, spoken over us that have been hurtful. Words really matter, and we need to be a good steward of the words. And when we put our words out into this universe that we live in, um, we need to make sure that the words that we speak to people, over people, specifically in this realm of mental health, grief, loss, trauma, can sow some type of seed. Because otherwise, it's just going to become a really bad weed. And you need to know what is here to grow and what is a weed that I need to pull out. And it takes a lot of wisdom. It takes a lot of time to know what are the weeds and what are the seeds that I'm trying to grow. And to be careful that you are always tending to that garden of your mind, that garden of your soul, and eradicating things that shouldn't be there. You know, I'm looking out my window, Tom, and it's just a crazy wind. And tomorrow I have to volunteer. Tomorrow I'm choosing to, I don't have to, I chose to volunteer for a mental health organization, not the one I'm on the board for, but one that I love, at the golf course. But it's supposed to be rainy all day, and I have a funeral. And I have to stand on the golf course not wearing cute clothes because it's going to be cold and rainy. And I could sit there and I could think about, oh, this is really going to stink. This is really going to stink. Or I can give myself a lot of personal hope and say, why am I doing this? This is why I'm doing this. So you got to just be careful about everything in your life. About what are you trying to grow here? Are you growing weeds that are going to become good seeds that are going to bear good fruit? Or are you just, what's going on? It takes a lot of time and self-reflection.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Great stuff. So we got a couple minutes. Anything that you would like to cover that maybe we haven't?
I don't know. It's a good question.
It's okay if you don't.
Just I guess encourage the people that hear this to find your version of Eden. Maybe it's golfing. It's not for me. I'm not a golfer. But I will go tomorrow to help others, bring awareness. Find your version of Eden. My version will look different than yours, Tom, and yours will look different than your wife's. There might be some overlap, but we all need to find that, because in our darkest moments, that's our hope.
And it is there. It still does exist.
What do you do to give yourself hope and peace? What are some tools that you personally have incorporated?
I meditate and center. I have a firm belief in connection with Jeff and God, the universe. Firm belief in connecting with that, and not allowing the distractions that come around, as we talked about in the beginning, to interfere. And sometimes when that's happening, I was just sad about things in general not too long ago. And I just remembered to do that and to come back and just say, okay, no, you're in this place, you're here, and you know what you've experienced, what you know to be true, and it's okay. And so the sadness didn't subside immediately, but it did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just centering really for me and knowing what I know to be true.
Correct. Because the false things scream. The things that are the false thoughts that come into our head, the false stories, scream really loud. And truth is not as loud sometimes.
Yeah.
We need to pause and do the reflection and try to stay still enough to hear the truth. And that's really hard in this crazy world that we live in that has this false narrative that to stay busy means you're doing something right, and to be still and to do nothing means you're doing something wrong. And that's why I think we have problems that we have.
Yeah. There's a great exercise that sticks with me from the Kessler stuff, working through that. And he talked about what is reality. Write down what happened, just the facts of what happened. And this was talking about the death event and what happened. So the facts, my son died, and just the facts surrounding that. And then he said, write the story of that in your head. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole nother thing that you create around what the facts are, just the facts. Yeah. And usually that's not good. It's usually a destructive thing that causes more grief for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so stick to what the truth is, what the facts are, and just down to that very basic thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be. Do you write music then to help process any of your grief? Is that one of your journeys?
No, I haven't written usually. I perform. I do entertain. Mm-hmm. I'm back to entertaining. But I've never written a lot. I have some, but not a real lot. So no, that hasn't been part of it. Surprisingly enough, I guess.
I'm wondering if one day you will wake up and there'll be a song in your heart.
There may be.
You never know, because the journey is so beautiful and so unique. And just like the layers of an onion exist in grief, I think the layers to the becoming of us again, how our journey of becoming, it's like, oh, I guess I can do this now. Oh, look at me. I guess I can do this now. Who would have thunk? I can do this now. And it's really interesting to see how people who are creatives like you and operate within a genius of music, how that plays a huge part. And someday you'll wake up and write a song, or if you're involved in playwriting, someday you'll wake up and you'll have a whole scenario played out in your head that you can put together. It's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, it's crossed my mind. It's and I'm evolving for sure. Mm-hmm. And a new portion of me is coming out. So thanks, Kimberly.
It'll be great to see what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Well, I think I heard that they're bringing back Star Search.
Oh boy.
So gird your loins.
Yeah, I think I'm done with all those kind of things. That's for sure.
Well, you never know.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have information, anything that we've talked about here, links to everything, GriefShare for sure, and anything that you want to provide, send me along, and we'll have that in the show notes and everything, so people can check things out for you. All right?
Well, thank you, and have a happy day.
You too, Kim. Thank you so much.
A good enough day. Okay. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Sunday, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.